This is the Al Madam Buried Village. It's about an hour outside of Dubai in the Emirate of Sharjah and has been abandoned since the 1980s and has slowly been overtaken by the elements ever since. Al Madam was constructed in the mid-1970s by the government of Sharjah as a more permanent home for the Bedouin Al-Qutbi tribe. No one knows exactly what pushed people out, but a lot of theories revolve around the harsh conditions of Al Madam, right in the middle of the desert with strong winds, though some local legend involves some more supernatural elements. Al Madam definitely has a spooky vibe to it, and it's not just because of some of the cryptic messages left behind by former visitors. No one knows exactly when the last resident left, but local legend says that it was jinns that forced residents to flee. You might know jinns by another name. We often hear them referred to as genies, but these are definitely not the genies that we know in the Western world, the singing, dancing Aladdin types. Rather, in Islamic mythology, jinns are believed to be spirits made of air and fire that inhabit the earth to influence humans. And apparently, there are tons of them in Al Madam. I have long been a lover of abandoned places, and whether that stems from my love of photography or the fact that that was sort of my form of rebellion as a teenager, I just knew that I had to visit Al Madam basically as soon as I got to Dubai. So the village of Al Madam is pretty clearly marked on Google Maps and is located just outside of the town of Al Madam, about an hour outside of Dubai. Now, when we got to the town of Al Madam that day, unfortunately we found that the main road running through the town, the road that connected to the road we needed to take out to Al Madam, was completely covered in construction. So we had to take an alternate route. We basically drove until the road turned into desert and parked right where we could last leave our car and decided to walk the last 2 kilometers or so out to the village. We had not walked for long, however, when a local man drove right up next to us and was telling us, he could take us out there. He could show us how to get closer. We didn't have to walk so far. So we decided to trust him, and the next thing we knew, we were following him out into the desert. Turns out the construction was not an issue for him, and he just bypassed it and took the road we had originally intended to take, which turned out to be less of a road and more of just packed down sand that somehow our teeny tiny 2019 Chevrolet Spark did manage to navigate. It was definitely possible, but there were definitely moments where I felt like we were dune bashing in our rental car. Eventually we got to a spot where our local friend told us to just leave our car and walk the rest of the way. It was about 250 meters from the abandoned village. As you walked, you could see the spiral of the mosque kind of emerging over the dunes. Now, the mosque is the one building in the abandoned village that you can't enter inside, but it was still just so beautiful to see how the elements had started to take it over. Luckily, there are plenty of other buildings to explore, though some have been so overtaken by the desert that you basically have to crawl through them. Cutie. So the day that we visited Al Madam, we pretty much had the place entirely to ourselves, even though it was a Saturday afternoon. There were a couple of people that came by in their 4-wheel drives and stopped in for a second, but other than that, we were there alone, which really added to the spooky vibe of this place. I think maybe it had to do with the heat in the middle of the day, but I also just think this is a place that's a little bit off the beaten track. However, I shouldn't say we were completely alone, because while we were there, we were visited by this very friendly group of camels, and I have to say that was my favorite part of the whole day. So should you visit Al Madam? I say absolutely yes. I think it is such a unique part of the UAE's history and something really different from the typical tourist attractions that you hear about when visiting Dubai. Now, if you don't have 4-wheel drive, it can be a little bit more of an adventure, but we did it and I am here to tell the tale, so it is definitely possible. I also think if you're into anything a little bit supernatural, a little bit spooky, there is no better spot. Maybe go at night and let me know if you spot any ghosts.